Hey everybody, it's me, John Lorden here. Welcome to another episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. I decided to try to feature a case that is international today. So in this instance, we are looking in the UK. A young man went missing. It's actually going to be 10 years ago next week that he went missing. But there are some very interesting questions that come out of this case. There's especially about the intent of what was going on with Andrew Gosden. So with all that being said, let's jump into this case and learn more about Andrew and his family. Starting here with a poster, missing Andrew Gosden from Doncaster, South Yorkshire. I think it's pronounced Yorkshire. It might be Yorkshire. Please forgive me if I get that wrong. Andrew was 14 years old when he went missing on the 14th of September 2007. The image on the right is a close-up of Andrew's ear that shows its distinctive shape. And if you can see, he has like two ridges at the top of his ear there. So very distinctive, very good identifying mark. And I'm really glad that they have such a good picture of it here. They also have a message to Andrew. There is a very big question of, did he run away on his own, of his own accord in this case? Andrew, we are here for you whenever you are ready. We can listen, talk you through what help you need, pass a message for you, and help you to be safe. Then, of course, they have contact information. I will have the contact information in the description box below. And this is an organization called Missing People. They do some really interesting things in terms of fundraising. Andrew's father actually helped them with a fundraiser where he wound up shaving half his head and dyeing the other half pink. Got a lot of press for that. It's really smart to do things like that to get press. But let's learn more about this case from kind of the official family website, helpustofindandrew.weebly.com. The disappearance of Andrew Gosden. Andrew has been missing from his home in Doncaster, South Yorkshire since the 14th of September 2007. He was last seen on CCTV footage at King's Cross Station in London later that morning. When Andrew went missing, he was 5 foot 3 inches tall, slim, with light brown hair and brown eyes. He needs strong prescription glasses. He was last seen wearing black jeans and a t-shirt. I believe it was a Slipknot t-shirt. There's also some other facts about his disappearance that aren't really being relayed on this website. He left home dressed up in his school clothes. Apparently, his mom had a little trouble waking him up this morning, which is a bit abnormal for him. He had just started a new semester. I think this was his 10th day. It was a Friday, and she had trouble getting him out of bed. She did get him out of bed. He put on his clothes and he left. Now, they had a neighbor that saw him, instead of going to the bus stop, hanging out at a park. And after Andrew's parents left for work, they're both speech therapists, if I remember correctly, Andrew came back to the house. And then he took off his school clothes. I've seen reports that he put some of his clothes in the washer and he left his jacket out over a chair, which is, once again, just an interesting tidbit to this whole case. If he really did run away, why was he worried about washing his school clothes? But then he left his home, walked to this local train station, and headed for London. Andrew was last seen 8:30 a.m. as he was heading down Littlemore Lane, Balby, Doncaster, towards Westfield Park. Andrew returned from school after his parents had gone to work and changed out of his uniform. He emptied his bank account, taking around £200, and without leaving a note, went to Doncaster Station and bought a one-way ticket to London King's Cross, refusing a return even though the cost was about the same. So for those of you that might not be that familiar with train systems, I know I'm really not all that familiar with them. In this part of the UK, if you're going somewhere, you can pay a certain amount to just do a one-way ticket, but the return ticket is really super cheap. Like, they're literally talking £1 or less for a return ticket. So it's an interesting decision when people get only a one-way ticket, because it makes it seem like like they're not planning on coming back. And of course, that is really a big question in this case. It is thought he boarded a train at Doncaster Railway Station at 9:35 a.m. on the day he went missing, arriving at London King's Cross Station at 11:20. South Yorkshire Police released CCTV footage from King's Cross Station on the 14th of September 07, the day he went missing. There are no confirmed sightings after this one. And this picture on the lower left, this is actually footage of him leaving the train station. We can see he's got his Slipknot shirt on. He has a bag with him. It almost looks like a carrier bag. And apparently that bag has a bunch of logos of his favorite bands on it. But he didn't take a lot of stuff with him. The only thing that they've noticed that he took was basically the clothes on his back, the 200 pounds that he pulled out of his savings account at an ATM, and his PSP, PlayStation Portable, but he didn't even have the charging cable for that. Now, a lot of people are looking at all that and saying, look, he was planning on coming home. I mean, even if you were going to take the PSP, why would you not take the charging cable? I've seen information from his father that he wasn't really good with details like that. I saw in one particular article where his father said that you'd have to pack his toothbrush for him, basically. But didn't take any change of clothes. So it certainly seems like he wasn't planning on being away for a long period of time. But even if you consider this, he's taking, I think it was well, we can see from the times here, it's almost a 2-hour train ride to where he went to. For him to have been home at the same time that he was usually finishing school by, he would have only been able to hang out in London for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours at most, and he would have had to have been on a return train coming home if that was his intended method of transportation for getting home that same day. Otherwise, his parents were obviously going to figure out that he was gone, that he was missing for some reason. So was it really his intent to come home that day or not? That is a question that, quite honestly, no one really has the answer to. They do have a video here and a bunch of pictures of him as he's growing up. He does have a sister that is only 2 years older than him. And here we see family photos as well. This has really affected this family in a very dramatic way. It's 10 years that they've been dealing with this now. His sister seems to be doing pretty well. She's kind of buried herself in terms of schooling. She excelled at school. He was also known as being very good, particularly at mathematics. And his sister recently got married, and of course, his family would have loved for him to be there, but that did not happen. On Friday, September 14th, 2007, Kevin and Glenys Gosden got up as usual for breakfast. Glenys remembers her son, Andrew, sleeping in, which was unusual. When he was woken, he seemed a bit grumpy, but within half an hour, he was dressed and out. He said, "Bye, see you later," she remembers, just like any other day. That evening, everyone assumed Andrew was already home and up in his bedroom. When I had made the meal, I asked Charlotte to call Andrew down. Charlotte's his sister, says Glenys. And that's when we realized he was missing. Calls to friends in his school revealed that Andrew hadn't been there that day. The police were contacted. By Tuesday, the railway employee who sold Andrew his train ticket came forward. She remembered him because he seemed too tiny to be traveling to London on his own, said Glenys. In a particularly wounding twist, the ticket seller recalled how Andrew had insisted on a single ticket. She told him it only cost 50p or £1 more for a return, says Glenys, but he said he wanted a one-way ticket. Weeks later, CCTV pictures of Andrew arriving at King's Cross turned up, but it was impossible to pursue further footage beyond the station. The trail had gone cold. And there's an interesting reason for that. And we'll get into some more details where Andrew's father is really outlining this, but essentially it took, I think, 27 days, if I remember right, for them to finally get the CCTV footage of Andrew at King's Cross Station. And by that time, when they went to other local businesses and I guess the bus stops have some camera systems, taxi stands sometimes have some camera systems, all the footage from those other systems would have been deleted because there was no reason to hold on to it for longer. So think about that. Almost a month before they actually took those photos, and we're going to find out why from his father's own words here. But The Guardian does a pretty good write-up in this article on this case. The Daily Mail also does a really good write-up on this case, kind of a longer form. It includes a lot of information from other people in his life, just kind of about how odd this really seems and their memories of the last time that they had encountered Andrew. So I'm going to be sure to have these links for you in the description box below. In particular, this Daily Mail article, I really suggest you spend some time and give it a read. It's going to take you a little time. It's a bit of a longer article, but it's definitely worth it if you're interested in this case. Over at doncasterfreepress.co.uk, I went looking for this information because I found a YouTube video where someone was retracing Andrew's steps. And in that YouTube video, there was a bit of an assumption that as soon as he left the train station, he went to a local Pizza Hut and bought pizza there. And someone remembers him from being in that Pizza Hut. I thought it was really interesting when I was watching this YouTube video, but I hadn't heard about this sighting of him at Pizza Hut, so I wanted more details on that. Let's take a look at what is in this article. Missing teenager Andrew Gosden has been spotted in the South Bank area of London, his father said today. Keep in mind, these sightings are coming through information really from the family. I don't know if the people from these sightings were vetted very strongly, but let's just see what they said. Andrew was spotted in Pizza Hut on Oxford Street on Monday, sleeping in a park in Southwark the following day, and getting off a local train in the Waterloo area this morning. And that this is Wednesday. So, but keep in mind, he left on Friday. So that YouTube video that I was watching trying to trace his steps from, hey, he went from the train station and went to Pizza Hut, that didn't happen for several days after he supposedly arrived in London. So following those steps in that direction, not really helpful. Apparently that Pizza Hut has since closed, the one on Oxford Street. And like I said, I haven't seen a lot of information to back up these claims. As a matter of fact, this article is one of the few places where you can even find some of this information. The Pizza Hut sighting seems to be talked about on some threads, but sleeping in a park, hardly ever talked about. Getting off a local train. You know, when you figure the kid had, and I've seen the reports vary a little bit, but somewhere between 200 to 300 pounds. I think the ticket price just for the trip that we know he took spent about 70 of that. Is he really going to be, you know, paying for another train ticket 5 days later? I mean, just in terms of him keeping himself fed, over the course of that, I'm sure that he was going to bust through, particularly if it was 200 pounds. He was probably going to run through that money fairly quickly, but just something to keep in mind. And like I said, I can't really find good information to back those sightings. Over at mirror.co.uk, we get an interesting twist, and this is almost 2 years after he went missing. Andrew Gosden's father, our last chance of finding runaway son is at Muse gig. Apparently, he was a fan of the band Muse. Well, we see a picture of him with a Muse shirt here. His father had taken him to a previous Muse concert. It will be a night on which fans of award-winning band Muse will go wild with excitement. But among the thousands of screaming, black-clad youngsters at the group's latest sellout concert, one figure will look awkwardly out of place. 43-year-old Kevin Gosden. The dad will hand out leaflets and anxiously scan the crowd. This, he believes, may be his last chance of finding his long-lost son, Andrew, again. And they have some new composites they did here, aging him up to approximately 16, changing his hairstyle just in case he might be disguising himself. 2 years ago, Kevin took the 14-year-old to Muse the last time they played at Sheffield Arena, the teenager's first rock concert. Last week, the family released computer e-fits showing how Andrew might look like today, age 16, either with his hair shoulder length or bleached and cropped. Now, there's a lot of information about bands particularly if you look into the threads. People are saying that there's a band that opened regularly for Slipknot that was playing there that weekend. I've seen other people say that actually Muse was playing there that weekend, but I can't really find good information to back that up. Is it possible that Andrew left on his own to go to a concert of some kind? You know, all he's got is the clothes on his back, a couple $100. Probably would have been enough to get him there and then get him a concert ticket. He would have probably been certainly in trouble by his family, because there's no way he's getting home from that concert until, I don't even know if the trains run in the middle of the night out there. But maybe was that a calculated risk that he was willing to take so he could see one of his favorite bands? I really don't know. Not knowing what happened to Andrew after 11:20 a.m. when he arrived at King's Cross has left Kevin a broken man. That is an understatement. This is a guy that is not able to work anymore. He stopped working. He is in counseling regularly, and he has actually attempted to end his life at least once, and from other things I've read, possibly twice. So the father is really dealing with this really, really rough. And some people, once again in threads, are talking about what could have been going on with Andrew at home for this, you know, were his parents trying to impose some type of religion on him or something along those lines. I'm seeing information to the contrary. I mean, Andrew wasn't even baptized, neither was his sister. His parents were basically leaving it up to them if they wanted to make that decision about their religion. The kids wanted to stop going to mass. The parents were fine with that. So I don't think at least that reason is a good one for him to want to leave. And his parents seem completely dumbfounded. They don't know why he would have wanted to leave. One thing they did note is it seems like he was walking home from school, and that was a little strange. That was a change from what he had previously done. So some people theorize maybe he was being bullied at school or something along those lines, but we haven't heard anything in terms of an investigation that has got any of that information and released it to the public, and I don't know how much the family is really buying into that reasoning. Kevin says, "We've been over it time and time again, but there is no reason we could think of why he went. Because he is so clever, he would be very resourceful, so that gives me hope that he is out there somewhere. But since he took the 200 pounds out of his bank before he went to London, there has been no activity at all on his account." Now, from what I've read, it seems like he cleaned out his account, but his parents have put more money in there. And if he did run out of money, don't you think he might have at least tried his ATM card somewhere just to see if it would work for a small purchase or something? Apparently, there is no activity like that happening. The police have checked regularly, and there's been no attempt to touch the rest of the money he had in his savings. One of Andrew's favorite television shows was The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, in which Perrin, played by 70s icon Leonard Rossiter, fakes his death so he can start life anew. Kevin asks, did he decide to do the Reginald Perrin thing and reinvent himself, or was there something troubling him that he felt he couldn't tell us? It's a really, really good question. And if we look at what his father has gone through since Andrew has disappeared, this man is clearly dealing with clinical levels of depression. He's taking medication. Is it possible that that runs in the family, that Andrew was dealing with depression in some way about some other type of issue? You know, I think that there's certainly a chance of that. Missing youth, Andrew Gosden feared dead. This is July 9th of 2011. An expert has warned the family of missing Doncaster teenager Andrew Gosden. He is probably dead and that they may never find his body. His parents, who would have been celebrating their son's 18th birthday tomorrow, say they have been told the police are looking at scaling down the long-running investigation into his disappearance. I'm sure that's something that no family ever wants to hear. A sonar search of the River Thames earlier this year found no trace of a body. Dad Kevin said the family had asked for a forensic psychologist's report shortly after Andrew first went missing. We suggested it in October 2007, and it finally arrived a few weeks ago. We wanted to know things like, if a boy like Andrew, quite intellectual and self-contained, was feeling suicidal, how well would they be able to conceal it? And what are the odds that if he had gone to London, that he would have encountered someone predatory? A few weeks ago, we got the report pretty much confirming what we feared, that he is probably dead. And that brings up another point that a lot of people discuss around this case as well. Was he potentially being groomed? Was someone speaking to him online? I'm seeing a lot of people argue in the threads about information about his computer use. I don't know that it would have taken a computer. We know that he played Xbox. We know he played PlayStation. We know he had a PSP, which is capable of jumping onto Wi-Fi. He probably had many different mechanisms for talking to people that he didn't know in his immediate life. There seems to be this story that police looked into. It was a computer in the home, but it was only there for a few weeks. It was actually bought for his sister. They couldn't find anything on that computer. They checked the computers at school and I believe the local library, and couldn't find anything that tied to Andrew on any of those machines. It's kind of strange to me to think of someone that is good at mathematics, being raised in the early 2000s and not being familiar with computers in some way. I'm not saying that he had to be a programmer by any stretch, but it just seems odd to me that a lot of people seem to be writing off that angle, that he could have potentially been groomed by someone, that someone could have told him, come out here, I'll pick you up. I don't know, we'll go to this concert and then I'll take you home, or something along those lines. I don't know. I hate to think about that angle in this case, but it's something that you have to consider, especially when we're looking at 10 years of him missing at this point. Another article at mirror.co.uk, Kevin Gosden, riddled with guilt because he believes losing one of the children in the adorable snapshots, this picture down below, left him unable to bring up his daughter Charlotte properly. Once again, just another angle that this man is suffering with in terms of Andrew's disappearance. Over at the DoncasterFreePress.co.uk, we're going to get some more information about Kevin's feelings about the police investigation and why that might have not gone as it should have right at the start. Kevin says he does not think the police have failed in terms of resources given to the investigation, but adds that he thinks police should have acted differently in the initial stages of the investigation. He said, quote, "If they had spent more time looking at the CCTV, things could maybe have been different. It took a month for them to get the CCTV of Andrew at King's Cross, and during that time they were looking at us and our family. Even though eyewitnesses on the train he boarded said they'd seen him get on the train and what time. I think because police are so used to investigating crimes, they assume that someone must be at fault, even in cases like this one." And of course, in cases like this one, they are going to look at the families. We see this in cases all the time. It's kind of a normal step in the investigation, but does that mean that that's what you solely focus on and you don't look at anything else until you have that step cleared? I think that that should be questioned. That's why I think there should be a separate organization outside of the police that is dedicated to looking for missing people. You guys have heard me talk about this on videos many, many times before. I wholeheartedly agree with Kevin here. The job of looking for missing people, I think, is not the same as typical police work. And especially in the US, our police departments vary in size and resources from one area to the next significantly. So it might be even helpful to those police departments to have these cases be managed by a separate organization that maybe is specialized in managing these types of cases. So I really think Kevin is onto something there, and I hope maybe we see some changes in terms of that in the near future. I just want to end with this page at missingpeople.org.uk. Just back with the photos, the interesting ear, and I hope that they'll do a newer EFIT kind of updating these images a little bit. I think it wouldn't hurt to have a more current view of what Andrew might look like currently. He might have gotten away. You know, he might be living out there somewhere. Maybe someone could have helped him in some way. I don't know. It's 10 years later. He's 24 at this point. I don't know. I really don't know. I think that we shouldn't give up hope on that, but they should be looking at other angles on this case as well. It's just a shame that they got to that CCTV footage so late, because they should have hit up every business around the station and gotten all of their camera footage and reviewed that and started putting his steps together. Kind of like something like we saw in the Corey McKeague case. I mean, the Corey McKeague's steps were traced extremely well, all the way right into where the U-shape alley was. But in a case like this, we just know that the kid shows up at the train station and then he just disappears. I do want to read you something that was written from his family. Appeal from the heart. And this is written to Andrew in the hope that he might read it or maybe hear it and be encouraged to contact them if he did indeed run away. We have all missed you so much since the day you left. Not a day goes by that you are not in our minds constantly. You were always so witty, polite, caring, and intelligent that we desperately miss your company. The same is true of all your friends and the thousands of people who have prayed for you and helped us search for you. If you should ever read this, forget about any water under the bridge and please have no fear about making contact with us. We do not care where you have been or what lifestyle you choose for yourself. We only want to know that you are safe and well, and to help and support you if we can. We remain as proud of you as we always have been and love you deeply. There's also a Facebook page for missing teenager Andrew Gosden. I will have it in the links below. This is where I turn it over to you, Brain Scratchers. Can you help me with this case? Please raise exposure to it by sharing this video, particularly in the UK. Admittedly, he could be gone from the UK now. He might have moved to some other part of Europe. Who knows how far he could have gotten at this point. But in particular, let's raise exposure to this. It's been 10 years. This family really needs answers. They really deserve answers so they can all move forward and heal from this. If you're the person that has those answers out there, please look in the description box. Please use that contact information, and please put it in the hands of people that can use it and maybe bring this case to a close. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Searchlight. I appreciate each and every one of you out there. Take care, and I will see you back here on the Lord and Arts channel tomorrow.